fans of this sport are built differently. They demand excellence and expect nothing less. Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond is a show dedicated to the fans. Your new home for Big Ten Wrestling is here, and it starts now.
And with that, welcome inside another edition of Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond. Rick Pizzo joined, as always, by Shane Sparks as we get ready for the biggest weekend of the year and the biggest duel of the year in college wrestling. It's number 1 Penn State, number 2 Iowa, and it comes your way this Friday.
As a wrestling fan, one of the best weeks of the year, and when the schedule comes out, this is the date you circle on the calendar. 1 versus 2, they're both undefeated. Full steam coming in. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And we will preview that match. We will go deep into the Hawkeyes and Nittany Lions coming up in just a bit. But we begin with our weekend headlines of the week that was. And it was a busy week. All 14 teams wrestled on Friday. But how about on Sunday? Wisconsin nearly shocks Iowa. It was all tied. They split the matches, but the Hawkeyes escape thanks to the criteria points. Yes, Tom Brands mixed up his lineup a little bit, but there were some nervous moments that we did not expect. Still, Hawkeyes unbeaten.
The Nittany Lions of Penn State, they roll over Michigan and Michigan State. Couple young guys really stepped up at 157 and 165. Levi Haynes and Alex Facundo. Facundo, a couple of overtime victories to lead the way for Penn State. Carter Starachi, a tech fall and a fall over the weekend as well. Penn State is rolling. James Franklin enjoying what he sees inside a sold-out Bryce Jordan Center.
How about 64 points over the weekend for the Nittany Lions? And how about the finish for Northwestern? They needed a major decision in the final match of the night from Michael D'Agostino. Didn't look like he was going to get it. Up by just 4 points with 30 seconds to go. He earns 5 points in the final 30 seconds to get the major, to earn the tie, and then thanks to criteria, Northwestern over Illinois.
Gophers with a nice weekend. They pick up 2 Big Ten dual meet victories. They beat Indiana Friday, followed that up against Purdue on Sunday. Matt Ramos was spectacular for Purdue, but Minnesota, they step up with a couple of wins, 174, 184, and 197. Those were the big weights for the Gophers.
So those are your weekend headlines. It is time for us now to focus on a couple of teams. And surprise, surprise, our focus on Iowa and Penn State leading up to this weekend's duel. Let's start with the Hawkeyes. Tom Brands did insert a couple of freshmen in that duel against Wisconsin. Needed Tony Cassioppi, who we'll talk with in just a bit, to close the deal. What do you take away from the weekend performance? Really impressive against Nebraska, then Wisconsin for the Hawkeyes as they get ready for the trip to Penn State.
They look great against Nebraska. Spencer Lee gets a quick pin. I mean, he continues to just ignite this team. Brody Teske, I thought, wrestled really tough this weekend as well. Hawkeyes are just fine. Against Wisconsin, yeah, there were definitely some things to improve on, but they had a couple of true freshmen in the lineup, and that changes things. Credit Wisconsin, they battled hard, but when you have a heavyweight like Tony Cassioppi to lock things down, you're in pretty good shape. Those bookends with Lee and Cassioppi and everything in between, pretty good team.
And the way that Lee sets the tone, no, the match and the duel wasn't over just because he pinned Liam Cronin at the start of that match on Friday night. But you could look at that Nebraska team bench, and they were kind of shaken up a little bit. 38 seconds, Spencer Lee says, yeah, bring it. This is the tone that we're going to set.
Yeah, 2 more pins for Spencer Lee. That's 6 straight. He's never done that in his career. 33 career pins. Bonus points, bonus points, bonus points. Against Nebraska, a pin from Spencer Lee, a pin from Max Mirren at 149, and a pin from Tony Cassioppi. They also had a major decision in there from Patrick Kennedy. You got to get bonus points. You got to take advantage of opportunities, and they did that against Nebraska.
We'll have more on Spencer Lee's weekend performance and his performance over the last 6 matches. Ludicrous in just a bit. As for Penn State, I mentioned it. 30 against Michigan, 34 against Michigan State. You start to go from 125 through heavyweight at this Penn State team, and there are simply no easy outs for the opposition.
Yeah, you got those veterans, the national champions at 174 with Carter Starachi, Aaron Brooks at 184, Max Steen at 197, Greg Kirkfleet ranked number 1 in the country heading into this weekend, suffered a tough loss to Mason Paris. That's your nucleus. But what I think is really scary, those young guys, Bo Bartlett at 149, Shane Vaness, or Bo Bartlett at 141 rather, Shane Vaness at 149, Levi Hayes at 157. That'll be a storyline to pay attention to in the second half if they pull his red shirts. And then at 165, Alex Facundo, I thought, had an exceptional weekend.
I love at 157 Haynes, who picked up a really nice win in sudden victory over Will Lewan. Patient beyond his years. adds a nice element for Cale Sanderson and Penn State, as if they needed another element to be added. Well, there was an element of drama to that Wisconsin-Iowa duel on Sunday. Shane was on the call, and it became ultra dramatic when Abe Assad, one of the top 10 wrestlers in the country at 184, was pinned by Tyler Dow. It changed the entire tenor of this match. So let's listen into the call from my friend.
Inside trip. Big inside trip from Dow, and he's able to put him on his back. Tyler Dow looking for a stick at 184.
Oh, wow.
Tyler Dow, a pin for Wisconsin.
You could see from the reaction of Dow, from Chris Bono, from the Wisconsin staff, what that meant. That was not an expected result, and the way that Dow did it changed everything about that duel.
You go to your strengths. Now, Tyler Dow, this guy is a very accomplished Greco-Roman wrestler. He won a Fargo title in Greco. He was also a junior world team member in Greco. And I loved what he did here, Jim. Or Jim says this on these broadcasts. Keep your Greco stuff in college wrestling. A lot of times those guys, they leave it behind. He went big. He went for a home run. That's a position he wants to be in, and he capitalized, and the place went nuts.
All right, let's focus now on Spencer Lee. 6 consecutive falls against some of the top wrestlers in the country at 125. I know we had this discussion just a year ago about Gable Steveson, whether he could be not just the greatest heavyweight, but one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. Spencer Lee suddenly is in that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. It's incredible what he is doing. I mean, he's taking All-Americans, guys that are really, really good, and he's pinning them, and he's pinning them quick. I mean, this guy very rarely is out on the mat for a second period. And when you look at what he did to Liam Cronin, 38 seconds, you got to call that. Kind of fun, Rick, for you to call Spencer Lee fall. And then he wrestles Eric Barnett and Madison, and Barnett falls behind 10-1 in the first period. In the second period, you just can't escape the grasp of Spencer Lee. He gets another fall. I mean, this is incredible to witness his quest to become a 4-time national champion.
It's unbelievable. We have seen some amazing wrestling at 125, and I know that Spencer Lee is making really good wrestlers look very average, but there are other guys at lower weight classes, 125 specifically, who looked really good. How about the weekend for Matt Ramos?
I really like him. Now, keep in mind, he was at Minnesota, came to Purdue, and man, does he look good. Hey, he lost to Spencer Lee, but he put Spencer Lee on his back. He's up 8-1. This weekend beats Patrick McKee, couple-time All-American from Minnesota. That one had to feel really good for him. And then he follows that up, or previous on Friday, he beats Eric Barnett. So he had a really, really good weekend. He gets on the legs. He's got a great double leg. He's good on top. I would describe him as a freestyle wrestler. He's had some success in freestyle, but he can ride on top, which makes him really good collegiately.
And he's one of the few guys ever who can say, hey, by the way, I put Spencer Lee on the back. Don't worry about what the final result was. I put him on his back. I'm sure that got him fired up. I'm sure you are already fired up for this weekend.
I am fired up, Rick, over some of these crowds we've seen in the Big Ten the last couple of weeks. You look at Jennison Fieldhouse a couple weeks back against Michigan, almost 5,000 people, a capacity crowd for the Spartans and Wolverines. In Madison, against the Hawkeyes, over 5,000 people. That is a new record for Wisconsin wrestling. Penn State, Bryce Jordan Center on Friday night, almost 16,000 in their win against Michigan. They'll be back in that building next Friday against the Hawkeyes. That'll be 16,000. And of course, with the Hawkeyes inside Carver Hawkeye, regularly 15,000. They're sold out for season tickets. That's what got me fired up right now. Great crowds, a lot of interest and excitement around Big Ten wrestling.
Oh, Shane, you have me fired up as well. When we come back here on Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond, Iowa's big fella, Tony Cassioppi, joins us. Plus, we look ahead to Friday's duel in-state college. #1 Penn State, #2 Iowa on tap.
Iowa, of course, will need a win from Cassioppi. Tony Cassioppi, his first lead of the match, 3-1. And Iowa will win this. Tony Cassioppi with the 4-1 decision. More importantly, gives the Hawkeyes the dual meet victory.
Yes, for the third time this season, the man behind me, Tony Cassioppi, took the mat for Iowa, knowing the duel was in the balance, and for the third time, he closed it out in the heavyweight match. Hey, Tony, welcome into the show, and I want to go back to what you said after that duel, because I read some of your post-match comments, and somebody asked you about knowing you were in a position where you had to win to close out the duel. You said you liked it. You kind of enjoyed being under that kind of pressure. Why?
I mean, it doesn't really change anything for me. I'm going out there and I'm wrestling my match regardless of the dual score. So, I mean, it just really doesn't mean anything to me. Obviously, I want our team to win 60-0, but it doesn't change anything or change the fact that I just need to go out there and do my job.
It was kind of cool to hear Coach Brands afterwards, a guy that we don't hear get glowing about his wrestlers all the time, say, hey, I got no issue with it because we got a heavyweight with ice water in his veins. We know he's going to close. That's got to feel pretty good.
It does. Yeah, it does.
All right, so take me through what you are doing so well. You're unbeaten this year. Where do you think, as you kind of look at your technical wrestling and where you improved, where have you improved the most from when you arrived in Iowa City?
I mean, I think I've just gotten all around better in every wrestling position. I think that's, kind of my focus is to get better at scoring points and just wrestling. So there's not like a specific position, specific area. It's just all around wrestling.
So how does that happen? I mean, is that through coaching? Is that through your practice? What is your general routine? And when you set out every day, because I know this is the wrestling mentality. I hang out with my guy over here, Shane Sparks, all the time, and he tells me the wrestling mentality is if you're not getting better every day, you're getting worse. So how do you get better every day?
Yeah, I mean, following the instruction of my coaches, just coming into every practice with something to work on, something to learn, and just being prepared for every workout to, give it my all that day and every day.
What's this heavyweight division been like last couple of years? Obviously, Gable Steveson dominated throughout the nation, but you've had your moments. Mason Parris has certainly had his moments. Greg Kirkfleet at Penn State has had his moments. What's it been like going through some of the best heavyweights we've seen in a long time since you arrived as a Hawkeye?
Yeah, there's a lot of tough heavyweights. It's a tough weight class in college wrestling right now, and I'm just trying to be at the top of it. And I'm working every day to be at the top of that stand.
And we get to see you typically wrestle at the end of duels. At the beginning of duels, we get to watch Spencer Lee. And it is something to behold when you get to watch from the outside. You guys get to see it every day. You get to see it in the arena. How do you best describe what Spencer Lee is doing this year?
I mean, he's just being Spencer Lee. He's a freak. He's just so good at wrestling, and I just try to learn anything that I can from him.
Now hold on. You're like twice the size of Spencer Lee. How does a heavyweight learn from what a 125-pounder is doing?
I mean, it's wrestling. It's wrestling's wrestling. It doesn't really matter the weight class. There's you can learn something from everybody. So. And Spencer's obviously the best, so I'm trying to take anything away from him that I can.
Well, it's been really fun to watch both you guys. I want to take you back to your high school days because I did some research, and this is pretty amazing. Your junior and senior year of high school, you combined to go 100-0, exactly 100 wins. You didn't lose, but even more impressively, you did not give up an offensive point to an opponent your junior and senior year. Now, be honest with me. Did it get boring at any times?
No, it didn't get boring. I was just a lot of those matches. I was maybe working on stuff. And everybody's game, you got to be ready for everybody. So, there wasn't like a lull or anything, and I was just looking ahead, looking forward a little bit to, where I can take my wrestling to best prepare myself for the next level.
Now, I know you played football your sophomore and junior year, but I understand maybe made a business decision before your senior year. Was that what happened? Knowing how good you were going to be at this particular sport, it was time to focus on just one?
Yeah, I broke my ankle my junior year playing football, and I committed to Iowa to wrestle. And so I was like, yeah, I just don't really need to risk it. And, I can focus on getting ready for wrestling.
I imagine that you were ready to battle because I also come from an Italian family where the family and the dinner table is really important, but you had 5 siblings. Now, I know you were the oldest and perhaps the biggest. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I imagine the battles at the Cassioppi family dinner table with 6 kids were, that had to be battle royale. I mean, that got you ready for what you're doing in Iowa City, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm the oldest. I've got a younger brother who's a grade below me. 2 sisters who are in high school, and then Rocco and Bruno, they're twins, they're in 8th grade, and they all wrestle. Well, my brother is a grade below me, stopped wrestling at Western Colorado, but he's back coaching my little siblings now. So,
All right, Tony, before we let you go, I would be remiss not to ask about the excitement level heading into this weekend. It's number 1 versus number 2. Penn State, Iowa, 2 programs that have dominated this sport over the last decade. What is the mindset for you and this team as you get ready for Friday night?
Just got to be ready like always. I think, our best wrestling's when we're ready, when we're attacking. And I mean, I'm treating it like any other match because it is any other match. It's the next thing up, and that's what I'm worried about. So it's not like I'm making it a huge deal. I'm just staying the course, getting myself ready.
I love it. Coach Brands loves to hear that. Making it a huge deal, that's our job, and that's what we're doing right here on Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond. Tony, great to catch up. Wish you best of luck this weekend and the rest of the way. Thanks so much for being with us on Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond.
Thank you.
All right, Iowa heavyweight Tony Cassioppi. He knows a thing or two about tough wrestling. Shane Sparks focuses on the week. It is the segment known as Tough Wrestling, and it comes your way next.
You better be tough. A new segment this season called Tough Wrestling. I love this segment. It fires me up. I'm in a full lather right now. Heart's beating. I love it. You never, ever give away those cheap points. Wrestle tough. Stay on top. All right, you know what time it is. Let's get right to it with Tough Wrestling. We start with Matt Ramos of Purdue. Sometimes tough wrestling is just having some courage. Final 10 seconds, first period. Here's Ramos, double leg takedown, scores it to take the lead 2-0. And then that urgency in the second period. I like what he does here. He picks bottom against McKee, who's really good on top. He gets the reversal. He's up 4-0. He closes period strong and finishes starts periods quick, and he gets it. That's tough wrestling. How about this guy, Lucas Bird? He is so tough. He's wrestling Chris Cannon. These guys know each other well, a pair of All-Americans. Cannon's leading at 1-0. Tough on the edge. Lucas Bird, good awareness, gets a takedown. Chris Cannon now with some tough wrestling. A critical escape to tie this match at 2 to the third period. But Lucas Bird, he is so gritty, gets a takedown. And now Lucas Bird is where he wants to be in that top position. Matt return, you see the riding time coming up on a minute. Right on the edge, he plants him into the Resolite. And that's really the difference. Gets a riding time point. Lucas Bird, again, tough wrestling. How about Kobe Seabrick of Iowa? This sequence here, 30-40 seconds, was huge in this dual meet. It was defense. He's in a tough position against Garrett Model. He just fights the position, trying to elevate, continue the scramble. Knows where he's at on the mat. Does not get scored on. Here we go. 1-1, final 20 seconds in this match. And the Hawkeyes, we knew that they would need him. And here's Seabrick. Good shot, doesn't wait, just explodes. Finds a way to win. That was a huge match for Kobe Seabrick. That's tough wrestling for the Hawkeye. One of the best stories, Isaac Wilcox has won dual meets at 157, 165. Here he is at 174. Great work. Right off the whistle. Doesn't stop, peels hands, turns in. 5-second escape. Can't tell you how important that is. And here he is, 1-1, final 20 seconds. Neutral danger zone situation. You're going to see the ref count to 3. Final seconds, 2 takedown. Wilcox wins it, right? Alex Clemson and Maryland will challenge it. They wave it off the board. That's where you got to be mentally tough in this situation. You got to keep your thoughts together. He does that now in the sudden victory. He gets the win. Isaac Wilcox, he's won dual meets at 3 different weight classes. That, my friends, is some tough wrestling. I was so impressed with Alex Facundo wrestling Cameron Amin of Michigan on Friday night. The All-American gets on the legs with a takedown. And this work on top, he doesn't ride him for a ton of time, but he's going to ride him a little bit. He's not going to give any free points. He stays patient right here. Here's the drop-down count, works up. Again, the mat awareness right here, looking for a return on the edge. And Amin gets out of bounds, but he builds up some riding time. Right now, third period, late, final 20 seconds. Facundo's up by 1, but Amin gets behind him. Good scramble here, and now Facundo's got to be feeling great about himself. He thinks he's got the takedown, but Michigan challenges it, and early in that sequence, they give the hand-touch takedown to Amin. So here's Facundo. Now he's down by 1, 20 seconds. This is Fantastic work on top. Amin really good with the mat returns. Facundo explodes up and gets the escape. We're going to sudden victory. Nobody scores in 2 minutes. We're going to the 30-second tiebreakers. Facundo does a better job accumulating more riding time, and he gets himself the win. Alex Facundo had a great weekend. He had a lot of tough wrestling, Rick.
And Alex Facundo is going to need a huge weekend coming up this weekend because he will be in the lineup for Penn State when the Nittany Lions take on Iowa. We are back with a weight class by weight class look ahead. Is there an anatomy for an Iowa upset? We'll tell you next.
Penn State leads Iowa. 3 matches to go. Wow. Takedown and pin.
Fireworks.
So familiar.
Yep. Go. There you go. Right there, all the way through. That's 2.
2 points. 3rd takedown of the match for Kimmer. 3.
And Penn State is going to snap this win streak. Once again, Max Dean gets it done.
Penn State, Iowa, such a great series. Welcome you back with the big board and a preview of what we might see on Friday night. Now, these are not predictions, but Penn State considered a heavy favorite to win it all this year. So how can Iowa take them down? Shane, let's go match by match. We start at 125.
Spencer Lee has got to get his 7th consecutive fall. The Hawkeyes have got to get 6 at 125.
6 full points for Iowa to start it off at 125. Let's go to 131.
Tough task for Brody Teske against the 2-time national champion Roman Bravo Young. If you're Teske, keep it to 4.
Just a major decision, nothing better for RBY. It's 6-4, 41 and 49.
This is such a critical part in this dual meet for Iowa. You got your veterans in Real Woods and Max Mirren. The responsibility is on these guys to get it done. They both need decisions at 41 and 49.
That would make it 9-4 after 41. That would make it 12-4 after 49. Let's go to 57.
I'm looking at these 2 matchups at 57 and 65. The Hawkeyes need to get one of these matches. Couple of toss-ups. They got to get a decision at one of these weight classes.
So we split 3-3, so we go 15-7 as we head to 74.
Nelson Brands fought really tough against Mikey Labriola of Nebraska, the number 2 ranked wrestler in the country. Now he'll get the reigning national champion Carter Strachey. Can he keep this to 3?
15-10 as we head to 184.
Same situation with Abe Assad. Last year inside Carver, Hawkeye kept it to a decision. He's got to do it again.
15-13 as we head to 197 in the rematch between Jacob Warner and Max Dean.
2 humongous matches. The Hawkeyes got to get one. You got to get a decision. You got to split right here at those weight classes.
So we're going another split at 97 in heavyweight. If we give a split there, we are at 18-16. The tone is set right here.
Exactly.
Spencer Lee cannot just afford a major decision.
Because if Spencer Lee gets that fall and criteria comes into play, you got a couple points to give if you're Iowa. It could be 18-18, but criteria would be the pin, and that would be Spencer Lee right there if the matches are tied 5-5.
So just to explain that, if we're going criteria, the only major decision that we have for Penn State on the board would be RBY, and that is +1 on top of that 3. Here with Spencer Lee, we would have a +3. So via the criteria, even if it's a tie, Iowa wins.
Yeah, that pin is huge. This is about bonus points and saving bonus points. It's a dual meet. Got to fight for your team, but that's the path to victory for the Hawkeyes.
Of course, this, again, not a prediction, just the path to victory. Victory against Penn State, anything but easy, especially in State College. That being said, that's why they take the mat, and that's why it will be so much fun on Friday night. For Shane Sparks and the Big Board, I'm Rick Pizzo. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on this edition of Wrestling and Beyond.